Hey there, it's Dave with Flipper Force. Got open our BRRRR Calculator prototype, so I'm just too excited to keep this to myself. I've got to share it with you. So this is our new prototype of what we are going to be building for our new BRRRR Calculator. So just going to show you a quick sneak peek of what we've got planned to build out over the next month, and then hopefully we will have the very first beta testing going on for the BRRRR Calculator, hopefully by the end of May. But what you're looking at here is our prototype for the BRRRR Calculator. Basically what it's going to be able to do is give you the ability to analyze a BRRRR deal. We've got it broken down into two phases here. You can see we've got phase one, which is essentially the buy and the rehab. So the buy and the rehab, that's going to be kind of like analyzing a flip. You are analyzing how much sweat equity or short-term sweat equity you can build into the deal by buying a property at a discount, making smart renovations to the property to increase the property value to build in some equity into the deal. So that's going to essentially be like our new flip analyzer tool. So we did go back and did a pretty major revamp to our flip analyzer. That's what we've been working on for the last month or so. So we're going to take a lot of that stuff that we built into our new flip analyzer tool and utilize that for building out the very first phase here. So the very first phase is essentially like analyzing a flip deal. You're determining how much short-term sweat equity you can build into the deal. You'll be able to, use a bridge loan to basically buy the property, get it renovated, and then you'll be able to refinance it on the back end once you get it to the second phase. So again, a lot of this is going to be very similar to what you've currently got set up for your flip analyzer tool, and that brings us to the second phase of a BRRRR deal. So you've got the first phase where you're analyzing the short-term sweat equity, but then you need to be analyzing the long-term returns that you can generate from the BRRRR deal by renting out the property long-term to a tenant. So that's really where the second phase comes into play. So you can see we've got rent and refinance, and you'll be able to set up your rental income here. So if you do have multiple units, if it's a single family, you'll be able to do that. But if you do have multiple units, whether you're working on a duplex, triplex, quadplex, or maybe even a small apartment building, you'll be able to set up a number of units in here to calculate your total rental income. Then you'll be able to set up your operating expenses. So you could do it as a percentage of rent, or you can really do a detailed itemized list of all of your operating expenses on the property. Ultimately, that's going to calculate your net operating income. You'll be able to plug in capital expenditure allowances, and then you'll get to the refinance loan. So this is going to be the loan that you're going to use to refinance the property with a long-term low interest rate mortgage. So you can see you can set it up with our loan amounts here. Pretty industry standard is going to be to get a loan amount based upon the after repair value and a percentage of that after repair value. So we got 70% plugged in here. You can see we would be receiving $315,000 as our total refinance amount when we go to refinance the property on the back end. And ultimately that's going to these values here, these long-term rental income, operating expenses, and the refinance debt service, that's going to be used to calculate your cash flow over here. So this is going to be a live real-time results showing you what your cash flow will be as you enter those values over here on the second phase, and then you'll be able to plan out your long-term stuff. So how long do you plan on holding on to the rental property? What's your future growth assumptions as far as income growth, expense growth, and property value appreciation? Ultimately, all that's going to feed over to a results page. So similar to our flip analyzer, it'll feed over to a results page. We don't have everything figured out over here, but hopefully this will kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. Basically what we want this to show you is what your total return can be from actually buying a distressed property at a discount, making smart renovations to build in that sweat equity up front, then how much long-term return you can get from holding on to the property long-term, from cash flow, and then from equity buildup from paying down the principal and also getting that property appreciation. So that's what we're trying to show here. You can see we've got a summary page which will kind of show you what that total return can be and what that expectation would be if you hold it onto the property long-term. Got a table here that just kind of shows your cumulative cash flow, equity, and from appreciation and from principal pay down, and what that total return would be on a yearly basis. So that way you can see what your total return on the dollar amount invested is going to be on the property. And then ultimately, if you really want to dive in deeper to what the short-term rehab results are, this will be kind of similar to the results page that we have on the Flip Analyzer. But basically what this is going to show is what you can expect during that short-term destabilized period is what we call it. So while you're rehabbing the property and getting it ready for a tenant, and then while you're going through that screening process to get a tenant in place, that's what we call the destabilized period. You also might have a period where you're going to wait for the bridge loan to get seasoned, so maybe that's going to be 6 to 12 months. During that period, you're not going to have rental income coming in if you're renovating the property. You are going to have a high interest rate bridge loan. So we call that the destabilized period because you don't have stabilized rental income, you don't have a stabilized long-term loan. So we call that the destabilized period. So during that destabilized period, we'll be able to see, what kind of rental income you'll be able to generate. So that's what that's showing. But then it's also going to show you what your capital outlay will be during that destabilized period. So that way you can see how much cash you need up front when you buy the property, and then how much cash you're going to need to be investing in the property on a monthly basis. So you're going to have to be investing money into the property for renovating the property. You're going to have holding costs while you're holding the property. You're going to be making loan payments to the lender for your bridge loan. So this will help calculate how much money you're actually going to have invested in the deal. You can see we have like a cumulative cash position here, so we're going to need $60,000 up front, and then as we start to invest money into this deal, by the time we get this property stabilized, we're going to have about $81,000 invested in this deal. So that's what that's showing, and then ultimately you can move on to the second phase, which will show you your long-term results. So once you actually get the property stabilized, you've got the property renovated, you've got your tenant in place, and you've refinanced the property with a long-term low interest rate mortgage. That's really when it becomes stabilized, and then you've got stabilized, predictable results for your rental income, your operating expenses, and your cash flow. So that's what this tab's showing. Phase 2 is really more so the stabilized results once you get it stabilized. So you can see this is just kind of a typical cash flow table showing you how your net operating income is calculated on a monthly and annual basis, how your cash flow is calculated on the property. So that'll show you how the property is going to cash flow. Then we've got some other tabs here showing you how you can build up your equity from property appreciation. So if our starting after repair value after we get the property renovated is $450 and we're expecting, it looks like a 2% appreciation per year, it's actually going to be worth $459,000 at the end of the very first stabilized year. So we're going to actually gain $9,000 just from appreciation. And then you can also see by paying down the principal of the loan, we're also going to gain $5,000 here from paying down the principal of the loan. So cumulatively, in that very first year, we're going to make about $14,000 in equity buildup, and then you can kind of see how it's going to build up over time. So that's a quick overview of what we're looking at there. There's probably some tweaks and other adjustments that we'll make over the course of the next month or two. I'd like to add in some other pretty charts and stuff to just kind of make things a little bit more visually appealing, so that way you can maybe visualize this stuff a little bit better. But I think ultimately this summary page kind of sums up everything that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to really show you how much equity you can build into a BRRRR deal from that initial sweat equity, and then also from accumulating that cash flow over time, and also building up that equity from paying down the principal and from the property appreciation over time. So hopefully you like what we've got going on here. Again, it's going to be a pretty hefty build. We're going to try to take as much as we can from the existing Flip Analyzer and hopefully reuse that, so that way we can make that development process a little bit quicker. But ultimately, there's a lot of calculations that are going to go into this kind of stuff. There's some charts and some other things that we'll need to build in here that we don't necessarily have for that flip analysis side of things. So bear with us as we work on that, but I'm looking forward to getting that launched for you.